the echoes, secrets that we know, doors that open for us in a moment, keeping the light on.
Hey guys, it's Cheyenne here, and for today's video it's going to be all about toning. So the most frequent question that I am asked almost every day is, how do you know what to tone with? So I thought that it would be cool to make a video and kind of show you guys my thought process and why I tone with what I tone with. And I'm going to show you a few different examples because not every blonde is the same. So I usually don't use the same toner on everyone. So I'm going to take you along with me and show you a few different examples. I'm going to show you what their hair looks like at the bowl. I'm going to tell you why I toned with what I toned with and kind of let you go through my thought process with me. And yeah, it's going to be a really fun video. I'm super excited about it. I'm so glad that I got to film it. So without further ado, let's just jump right in. Thanks for watching, y'all. Okay guys, let's go over all things toning. So the first bullet here says you will not know what to tone with until you see the underlying pigment of the hair after it has been lifted. And I put that because a lot of people are always asking for the formulas. And I want people to understand that it is beneficial to know people's favorite formulas. But also you need to understand that you can't just use one formula on everyone. You can't just use a non-violet on every single person that you get. You have to understand the underlying pigments and what you need to use to cancel those pigments out. So next we have tone on level. And what I mean by that is you can't tone someone who has lifted to a level 7 with a level 9 toner. It's just not going to work. And I see a lot of people doing that often, and that is why your toners aren't working. So make sure you're toning on the level that you lifted to. So the next bulletin talks about using your color wheel and making sure that you know all of your toner's background colors. With Redken Shades EQ in the color book, it tells you all of the toner's background colors. And it's very important to know what they are. That way you are toning effectively and efficiently. So Redken Shades EQ is an acidic demi-permanent hair color. So that means it is very conditioning and it leaves the hair very shiny, especially after bleaching. And I really love that about Shades EQ. I love all of the shades and the different unique formulas I'm able to create with Shades EQ. This is one of the reasons why it is my favorite line to tone with, because I am able to create a unique formula for every guest. And I also love how translucent Shades EQ is, especially when I use it for my root taps and my root shadows. So here's the before on client number 1. We're working with blending in her grays. So we are going to do a highlight to brighten everything up and to blend. And then we're going to do a root tap for more blending. As you can see here, she lifted to a pale yellow, which is the underlying pigment of a level 9. Alright, so now we have put her root tap on and we've rinsed the lightener. So you can really see some of those pale yellow and gold tones that she lifted to. So now let's look at our Redken Shades EQ chart that has the color wheel on it. And we're going to see what we need to tone with in order to cancel out the yellow. So by looking at the color wheel, I know that I need to use something violet. So now with that being said, I'm going to go to our Shades EQ chart that shows all of the shades. So my thought process goes, I know that she lifted to a level 9. And I know that I need to use violet because I see yellow and gold tones. So I'm going to reach for a level 9 violet, which in Shades EQ is 9V. And that is one of my favorite toners to use on blondes. But then I start to think, well, I don't want her to pull too ashy or go too lavender. So I need to make sure that I complement that ashy violet tone with something warm and natural. So whenever I'm in these situations, I like to reach for a N. So that is why I toned her with equal parts 9V and 9N. So remember when I told y'all that I do a root tap on her to better blend the grays as well? I wanted to explain a little bit further on what I mean by that. So I still use Shades EQ for my root tap, and this is their color chart. And in the bottom left corner it says Formulation, and I'm going to zoom it in right here so you guys can see. And it tells you right there on the right that the NBs in their line really helps to blend in the gray. So for that reason I use a 7 NB for her root tap. And anytime I'm saying like 7 NB or 9V, the number is the level that I'm using. So I use a level 7 NB, and I just do that by itself, and I use that as her root tap. I make sure to let it sit for 20 minutes, and we feel like this has been the best way to do her hair. We used to cover up her roots with a permanent color and it always grew out bright, but now that we use Shades EQ, it doesn't do that. So after the root tap has sat on about 15 minutes, I take my all over toner, which is the 9N 9V, and I tone her ends and I blend it in with the 7NB that we used on her root tap. And here's the end result on client number 1. The 9V canceled out the yellow perfectly, and the 9N made it reflect the light. That way it ended up being a really bright, beautiful blonde. And the 7NB worked perfectly as well, and as you can see, it didn't go too dark, which is great. Okay guys, so for client number 2, we're going to do a half highlight, and we're trying to get her as bright blonde as we possibly can today. So here's client number 2 in the shampoo bowl. We've already done her root tap, so now I'm just examining her blonde to see what we need to tone with. I see some gold and some yellow tones in there, and we're really trying to get her as bright and icy as we can. So let's go to this color wheel right here and look and see what we think that we need to tone her with. So again, she has yellow tones. So we're going to look and see what's across from yellow, what cancels out yellow. So that's going to be violet. So we know we need to use something violet on her. So before we can tone, we need to determine what level she lifted to. So by examining her blonde, I see a lot of pale yellow. So that tells me that she did lift to a level 9, which is great. So now we need to look at our Shades EQ chart. And I'm really wanting her to be ashy. I want her to be a really cool toned blonde. So unlike the formula that I used on client number 1, I'm not going to add as much warmth with client number 2 because I'm actually wanting to achieve a cool blonde. So for client number 2, I'm going to use a 9V to cancel out the yellow because that is the violet tone that we're looking for. I'm also going to use a 9T. 9T is titanium, and the background for titanium is silver blue. So the blue that's in titanium is going to cancel out any orangey kind of tones that we may have, and it's also going to make it a really ashy cool tone. But again, I don't want her hair to turn too silver or too blue. So I'm going to make sure that I complement all of my ashy tones with something warm. So I'm going to add in a little bit of 9AA. So I'm going to use equal parts of 9V, 9T, and then like a cap full of 9AA. So as we know from looking at this chart, AA means Auburn, Auburn. So a 9AA is a level 9 auburn, and yes, that is red, and no, her hair is not going to turn red. So my thought process here is I want her hair to be ashy, but she really wants her hair to be bright. So So if I just have these ashy tones with my 9V and my 9T, then it might turn too dark because ash does not reflect light. So by putting the 9AA in there, it's going to make it warm enough to where my blonde will reflect the light and it'll actually look bright but still ashy. So here's the end result of client number 2. It turned out really ashy, just like we wanted, but it's still bright. So I hope that kind of helps y'all see why it is so important to complement your ashy tones with warm tones when doing blondes. Alright guys, so this is client number 3. She was a balayage client, and as I'm looking at her hair, I'm seeing a lot of kind of orangey golden tones, but I'm also seeing a lot of pale yellow. So when I have this happen, I always want to make sure that I tone off of the darkest pieces. So her darker pieces look like they are a level 8. So I want to make sure I tone with a level 8, because if I toned with a level 9, it's not going to address those pieces that are at a level 8. It's only going to address the level 9 pieces. But if I tone at a level 8, it's going to address the level 8 pieces and the level 9 pieces. So I hope that makes sense. So now we're going to go back to our color wheel. And she does have those yellow orange pieces, but really it's more yellow than anything. So we're going to tone with something on the violet side. And since she is a level 8, I want to make sure that I tone with level 8s like I said before. So she isn't looking to achieve anything too ashy. She really wants it to be very natural because she is a natural redhead and we did a balayage. So she really wants it to blend and look very natural. So since I'm seeing a lot of yellow tones in her hair, I want to use a 8V to account for that. And since we are trying to do something natural and not ashy, I want to add in a level 8 in. That way it'll give us the warmth that we need, and it'll also give us that really pretty natural tone that we want. So here's her after. I hope by seeing this it really helps you understand why we use the level 8 and why we use the N and the V. It turned out really bright and natural, just like we wanted it to. Alright guys, so that's it for this toning video. I hope you really enjoyed it, and I would love to hear from y'all in the comment section below, and I would love it if you would subscribe to this channel and like this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope I get to talk to you again really soon. Bye y'all.